what people don't realise is less recycling is done today than it was back then, because when it was naturally done, the European Union scaled up all their rules. They came onto us and stopped us doing what we do. The first thing they made, and it still is today, recycling illegal, whereas before they come along, it was legal.
Before we dive into this episode, we have a quick favour to ask. If you've enjoyed any of our videos or podcasts so far, we would really appreciate it if you could take a moment to hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep creating valuable content for you. Thank you so much, and we hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome to the Ridgemont podcast. This is John Wallace, the Managing Director of Ridgemont, and I'm sitting with Colin McLoughlin, who is Chairman of General Demolition. Morning, Colin.
Morning to you.
What advice would you give your 20-year-old self looking back now with all the hindsight that you've got?
Dear, I don't know really. That's so hard to answer, because unless you live through that hindsight, you can't actually, because the times are completely different.
Yeah.
In 10 years, whatever you thought you were going to do when you were 20, when you were 30, it was nothing like that. And I'll give you one illustration to that, so how you can't really look back and give that advice. I think in my 20s, I wanted to buy a demolition company, and it was £30,000, and it come with plant, machinery, men, contracts, and a yard.
And when was that?
That would have been in about roughly 75.
So 30 grand was a lot of money back then.
A lot of money for a whole business. I couldn't raise the money, so I didn't buy it. And I think it was 4 years later, my wage bill was $250,000 a year. So it was pointless buying that company.
Yeah.
I didn't know. So that's sort of how things move on, and you can't really.
Well, let's talk. Before we jump into your business success, which is amazing, talk to me about your education.
Well, that'll be quite a short conversation, that will, because I didn't really have education. Went to school like everybody went to school.
Where did you go to school?
I went to school in Merstham in Surrey. It was just a state school.
A state comprehensive.
Yeah.
Were you good at school?
No, couldn't do it at all. Didn't really know what was going on at all, really. So
why was that different?
I just think all the other people at that school didn't know that either, and so I don't know.
And was it that you couldn't do it, or you weren't interested?
I think it's both.
Yeah,
it's both. You need a teacher that tries to help you be interested in it, and of course, that it was just a classroom of 40 kids.
Yeah,
and the teacher had to fill up those hours.
Were there any subjects that you were good at?
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, I think if anything's to be learned from this podcast, it's that if you're not academically strong, it doesn't mean you can't be incredibly successful in business.
No, I do believe that. That is quite true. I think. Yeah. I mean, obviously, you and I know, John, people like myself who's relatively successful and had no education. I mean, there's a big builder we all know in the southeast, and he probably didn't go to school, whereas I did, and so I don't believe that really.
So, did you leave school when you were 16?
15.
15. Wow. What did you do then?
Believe it or not, for 6 weeks I was an apprentice jockey. So actually, this might help you with how things go. So the reason I was an apprentice jockey is because at that stage I was 7.5 stone. That's all I was.
Wow, you're not now.
I'm not now, but and I was for quite till I was sort of 21. And in fact, I couldn't get in a pub till I was 23, 24, because I looked so young.
You're like a boy.
A boy, yeah. And so I couldn't go to the pub with my mates. But I could go on the buses for half and the trains for half fare till I was 20.
Silver lining
till I was in my 30s. But but so
how did you get that opportunity to become a jockey?
my dad was in betting really, and so it didn't really get the opportunity. We just if you, I think them days it went to like if you was like a really big guy, like to fight, you went on the doors. If you was 7.5 stone, you went to be a jockey. It worked like that.
So you only did it for 6 weeks. It didn't work out.
No, I didn't like it. I didn't like horses. I didn't like the early mornings.
Well, that's a drawback for the profession.
And it's very.
Were you good?
Very,
Could you do it?
I can do it. Well,
can you ride a horse now?
No, impossible.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to go to bed for a week after riding a horse. I mean, no, I didn't like it, and it was really scary.
Really?
Yeah.
And did they get? So was that your first time riding a horse? Was that?
Yeah.
And did they get you? I don't know what the word is, but getting the horse out of canter.
Well, actually, when you're an apprentice, it doesn't. You do it. It's a bit like if you was a carpenter, apprentice carpenter. All you'd be doing is sharpening tools. No one's going to get you to make a cabinet. At 15. So you had all the other jobs. Like being in your horse box when.
Did you have to muck out?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Cleaning all the tack and all that stuff. But.
So that lasted for 6 weeks,
yeah,
and you decide. So then, did you go home one day and tell your dad, "I don't fancy that"?
I don't think we had a structured life like that, where you'd go home and see your dad. I mean, just that wouldn't happen. I don't know. It just.
What did you do after that?
I was on. The thing was, I went on driving cranes, machines, lorries, all that stuff, because I was good at doing driving. Still am now. I can drive anything. And them days I could mend anything as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, how did you pick that up?
Don't know. It's just a natural thing, really. I suppose then it's if you broke down, you had to mend it. Otherwise, you couldn't get home. You weren't in the AA or the RAC, or you couldn't ring your parents and go, "Can you pick me up?" 2 reasons. One, we didn't have a mobile phone. We didn't even have a phone at home, so you couldn't ring home. And my dad didn't drive anyway, so you had to get your cell phone. That was it.
This is a bit embarrassing, but I can't even change the wheel on the car. When I get a flat. I remember I was walking with one of my friends from school when we were about 18 along the road, and a woman, very attractive woman, had broken down and was at the side of the road and asked us if we could change the wheel for her. And both of us were like, no chance. But yeah, some people have got it, haven't they? So anyway, so you were working in construction from 16-ish, basically.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Basically.
And then how did you take the first step into kind of working for yourself?
I don't really know. I can't really explain that. It just happens. Somebody comes and says, "Listen, I need someone to drive that machine." So I'd be working for myself, driving that machine for them.
And then you ended up going into demolition quite young.
Yeah, probably about 18. Yeah.
What did you know about demolition at that point?
I didn't know much about it, but I did know about plant and machinery. And I used to. People used to come and get you for certain reasons. I don't know. I can't sort of remember, but they might have bought a machine and don't really, wanted someone to drive it or do something. So they used to come and get you to do that. So.
What area were you working in at the time, sort of geographically? Where were you?
I've done a lot in Crawley in Sussex for a guy who was building. It just shows you how things have changed, right? In them days, I was knocking down houses so sheds could be built.
Yeah,
big shiny sheds for the airport.
Yeah, like warehouses.
Yeah, warehousing. So you knocked down houses in those days.
What were they? Terrace housing? Or?
Yeah, terrace. And some were detached. It was a sort of
mix.
A mix of them, yeah. And they used to knock down a whole village, like the school, the garage, the hotel, because you used to have a lot of hotels around Gatwick, obviously. And they used to knock them down to put warehousing up.
So they'd bring you in and say, we've got 5 houses we'd like you to knock down.
Yeah.
And so you do it. And talk me through, in those days, how you demolished them and what you would do with the bricks and stuff.
Well, we would... I mean, it's quite obvious that you could sell bricks and timber and scrap metal and all that stuff. So that wasn't hard to pick up.
Did you have the contacts to sell them to?
Well, them days, you didn't really need the contacts because it didn't work like you rang somebody, because like today it'd be on the internet or the mobile phone. There wasn't any of that. So life never worked like that.
Yeah.
It worked where you was on a job, you put a sign outside, or even if you didn't, people would come and say, have you got any wood I can buy? I live up the road and I'm building a shed or a chicken coop or whatever they were building. I need some wood.
So you were knocking these houses down. You were knocking the mortar off the bricks and selling the bricks.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's quite entrepreneurial for a young lad. And you did that for a few years. And then, is it right, an opportunity came up to buy a yard?
Yeah, that.
So how did that come about?
Well, that was through the recession of 89, 90, 91. Yeah, it might have been, actually it was before that, where I went to do a demolition and it became Christmas time, and I said to the client, listen, I've finished now, and it was, say, a week before Christmas or 2 weeks before Christmas. I didn't have another job to go on to. I said, can I leave all my gear here? Yeah, leave it there if you want. I've got nobody to... I'm looking for someone to lease it to, but can't find anybody. And I said, okay. So I left it there for 2 weeks.
How big was the yard?
Well, big. It was probably 3/4 of an acre. And on it was a warehouse with all the roof was leaking, which was nothing to do with me because I knocked down a wooden structure on the side. Big structure. And I think we come back after Christmas and he couldn't find anyone to take it on. And the rent on it was 12,000 a year, I think. I started talking to it, 12,000 a year. But the works to do on the warehouse was about 12 grand. So I said, I'll take it on, I'll do the work, and I won't pay you the rent for a whole year.
Yeah.
He said, oh, okay, that was good. And so I did that, and I put an advert in the paper, because I only wanted where my equipment was parked. I didn't want the warehouse.
Yeah.
It's not good to me. So I put an advert in the paper, warehouse to let, and a guy come along, and he was a metal work in the construction industry, doing sort of metal balconies and anything, metal staircases, all that stuff, fabricator. And he said, I said to him, he said, how much is it? I said, it's 12,000 a year. I said, but it's a bit of a complication. You got to do all these works. So he looked at those things, and because he was in that game, he said, oh, I'll do that. It's no problem.
Yeah, yeah.
So I had the whole place for nothing, right? So that was all going along okay. And then I used to bring my bricks back there and then retail them, because you got your own yard, where you didn't have to sell them from the site anymore.
So you had them all organised on pallets, did you?
No, I didn't do pallets then, all handball. Yeah, that came later. Pallets was, that pallets and cranes, IABs was long time. So that's really, and so going back to your question about the yard, while I was there, somebody who it was a big fund, I can't remember their name now, but big fund rang me up and said, look, I know we've leased you this yard and all that. We want to sell it now, so we need you to go. So it was a little bit difficult because the bloke next door's just spent, 12, 15 grand. He's sort of settled in now, you know what I mean? So they said, well, if you go, we'll give you 40 grand. And I thought, that's handy, And I didn't really do much about that.
Yeah.
And then a guy came in the yard, and he was from Ford, to get Ford Motors.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, can I have a word with you?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Look, I know I'm trying to buy this yard, so I'm the buyer, and I know the people who own it's offered you 40 grand to go, but if you do go, I'll give you 40 grand as well." So I said, "Okay, I'll let you know."
Yeah.
So
And 80 grand at that point.
that was a lot of money.
A lot of money, right?
That was a lot of money. Yeah, but you got to remember, my tax in them days was 70%.
Right.
Okay. You go, so that was 70% on my earnings and that kind of thing. So anyway, I thought to myself, you know, for that to happen, there's got to be something in this.
Yeah.
So it sort of stuck in a way.
How old were you at this point? 30 or something?
I don't think I was 30 then. I think it was in mid 20s then. It's probably 28, 26, 27, 28.
But even then, you were kind of thinking smart, because a lot of people would have just taken the 80 grand and gone. But you were thinking, well, why do they want to give me 80 grand?
Yeah. So what happened was the owner said, "Look, it's all embarrassing. I said, what did you buy it for? And then let it out if you don't want it." And he said, "Well, we're a fund and we just go to the auctions and buy stock for no reason." So that's when I knew the world was really crazy, you know. And I realised he was doing that with my pension money. Do you understand? Right? So that's or everybody's pension money, yeah? So they were just saying to kids, "Go out and buy some stock today." It's probably in London somewhere. They went to the Savills auction and just went, yep, I'll have all that, not realising what they were buying. Anyway, I said to him, "Listen, I've got a better idea. I can smooth all this over. I'll buy the yard." So I bought it.
How much did you pay for it?
Well, it was all discounted out because, you know, they couldn't. I was the only buyer because I was sitting in it. So I can't actually remember the figure. I would say now it was probably 300 grand, I would say.
In today's money?
No, then.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But I sold it 2 years later for $1 million.
So that wasn't bad.
No, to the guy who originally offered me the 40 grand to go out. Yeah.
Why was he so keen on it?
Well, he was doing, unbeknownst to me, he was doing a redevelopment down the road. And at the time, there was a thing called out-of-town shopping centres, was a big thing. And he had big sites out of town. And the supermarkets wanted to move in there. They didn't mind him having a showroom with a supermarket, but they didn't want the mechanics there. So they had to find another site to do all the mechanics. And that's why they wanted that. Yeah.
So that was a good deal. And then...
so, then I knew property then, didn't I, really, basically, you know.
And so you sold that yard, so you needed somewhere else to go, right?
Needed somewhere else to go. But actually, what drove that, and I did say earlier, never let tax drive what you do. But at the time, I had a tax bill of 320,000, and you could do what I call rollover relief. So if you spent the whole of the 320,000, that was the tax bill. You didn't pay any tax. So basically, I went and bought another yard, if you like, with the tax. With the taxman's money.
And where was that nearby?
That was in Esher. So I was going posh then.
And that was bigger?
Probably the same size.
Yeah.
Probably the same size. Still got that yard even today.
And what did you plan to do with it?
Well, I moved in there with my offices, my equipment, my bricks. Just done my brick yards, brick stuff, you know, and all of that. And then another... a bank come looking for me to manage a big lump of land, which they'd repossessed from Broadwell Land in Hersham. And then I started managing that from.
And what was there at the time?
Sorry?
On that land, what was there at the time?
There were just people like scaffolders, coach, parking, scrap metal people, just all small stuff, really. So I sort of moved on that and managed it for them, and almost it was a repeat of the one before back in Kingston with Ford and all that. But so I was looking after it, and then they were a German bank; they didn't really know what they were doing, But like all things, you know, they were into bankrolling car manufacturers and machinery manufacturers, all in Germany. When they made a lot of money, somebody talked them into banking in the property sector of the UK because it was on fire.
Yeah.
So they did it, poured millions and millions in, and lost their shirt. And then I was managing that for them. And then I said to him, look, there's an easy way of managing this. You give me a lease, I'll give you some money, I'll do all the management. You don't need to worry about it, and you'll be getting...
Because you were thinking you could make a turn on this.
Well, yeah, and also in the lease, I had an option to buy it.
Oh, and was that your idea from the start?
Yeah, and they wanted to sell it, but they couldn't get anyone to buy it because it was a massive liability. So when I had sort of calmed down all the liabilities, I had my option to buy it. Then that was about 96.
And up to that point, you were still growing your demolition business.
Still growing demolition, yeah.
And had you started off just yourself, presumably. By that point, had you built up a team? And
yeah, I had a big team of people. Yeah.
And what sort of jobs were you working on?
Then it would have been people. You know, I'd have done jobs for. I don't know, maybe some Barretts. You know, Barretts, the builders, for them.
So you'd really scaled it by that point.
Yeah, by that point, yeah, it did get a bit. Yeah, plenty of machinery, plenty of lorries. Yeah,
and you had your own setup at the yard, the trommel and everything.
Yeah, in this new yard, concrete crushing, all that stuff, and recycling was a big thing. But it always was. Recycling was always a big thing. It's nothing new.
Well, people remark on it as if it is a new thing, but you're saying it's always been the case.
Well, it's always been the case, and what people don't realise is less recycling is done today than it was back then, because when it was naturally done, because then I don't know how this works, but the European Union scaled up all their rules. They came onto us and stopped us doing what we do.
Give me an example of how those rules stopped you doing something which was sensible.
The first thing they made, and it still is today, recycling illegal, whereas before they come along it was legal, and now it's not. So you can't do it.
I can't do it. No, you need to have a license to do it.
You need to have a license to do it, and you might as well. To get a license, you need to set yourself alight, fight an alligator, jump through 9,000 hoops, and get to the other end. If you ever do, go through a swamp, and by the time you've done that and took team of 30 people on the payroll to get that license, it's not worth recycling anything at that point because there's no money left.
I think you've spoken to me before about the people you had to employ back in those days as the tick and turners.
Tick and turners, yeah. So that's another thing that happened. And if you go back to your question, your previous podcast person who said, what would you change now from your 20?
What would you tell your 20-year-old self?
So the reason you can't say that is you can't influence anything. So what happened, it's probably in lots of industries, I can't say for those, but I can say for mine. There was a thing came along, and the most I know about it is because the bits I see on TV on the news, and it was education. Now, what that did was made sure that every kid could go to university. Now, at that point, interest rates had dropped right down.
Are you talking about 96, 97?
No, that should be further on. I can't. This will be 20 years ago. Yeah. Maybe about 20 years ago. Labour government, Tony Blair, education. It's ringing in my head, and it will all my life. Yeah. So what that meant was fit people in, have 3 or 4 years there, whatever it was, give them a loan to be there, even though the parents were rich because interest rates were on the floor. So they could buy any house.
Yeah.
They could self-certify their own mortgage. Their property went up every 6 months. And instead of drawing money out of that house and paying for the child's education in university, they went on holiday with the money and bought a Range Rover and put a swimming pool in their house. Yeah. The government, i.e. me as taxpayer, copped the bill for them going to university. When they come out the other end of university, they then wanted a job. Well, you put millions of kids through that and they come out the other end expecting a job, you've got to make some jobs up.
Yeah.
And when you're in the European Union, they can help you with that. I was employing people to do recycling or to get me a license to do recycling, which I didn't need. And I'm paying my tax bill for them to be in there while the parents were drawing money out of their houses and going on holiday.
You won't mind me saying that you've always been interested in the law, specifically planning law, because of the yards and what you needed to know.
Yeah.
What do you find interesting about law? And I think most people are afraid of going in front of a judge when there's a dispute, but you actually quite like it and see it more positively as an opportunity to get a decision or something.
I think you're right there, John. That's exactly how I think about it. And I think you're right. People are scared of it, don't understand it. And I do actually believe in it, you know, as much as I rant on about governments and, you know, and legislation and all that. I do happen to believe in that system. And if you're right, when you go into that system, you will get a proper hearing and you will get the answer. If you're right, if you're wrong, you're not going to get it, you know, because you're wrong. But if you look on the face of law, you think you're wrong, you really got to drill down into it to know.
Well, let's talk about that. There's this idea of the Zulu principle that if you practice something for 1,000 hours, then you become an expert in it. I'm not saying that you would practice planning law for 1,000 hours, but you obviously got interested in it and read up on it. But how did you get that level of knowledge that you've got?
Yeah, I suppose it's just a case of having to know that because somebody was coming to take your yard off you, really. Still are, even today, you know. I mean, you take the Environmental Agency, they roll up, they've got incredible powers. They'll those people in the Environmental Agency or in the planning department, their knowledge is very limited. They don't really know, and they see themselves as somebody in power because they've gone through university. They're now facing me. They just cannot compute that I'm going to roll over them like a steamroller. They don't. That can't compute in their brain, and so they just think what they're saying. They're going to shut that down because they've had some complaints from Mrs. Mills up the lane or whatever. And she's going to shut it because she's on the parish council. And unfortunately, they don't know.
They've picked the wrong person to pick on.
Yeah, and actually it turns into something, John, that is not about my case, although I'm quite happy to have to deal with that because my value will go. It's a personal thing that someone would be so arrogant as to go and do that to anybody. And and not know, and it's just in their head. They don't want it there, and that's it. Whereas I'm not like that. I'd sooner let the court say whether it's going to be there or not, and if they say it's not, I'll accept that. Yeah. So
you've obviously got an aptitude for law. I know that because we've spoken about law before, and you clearly understand it and how it works. How does that sit with the fact that you struggled at school?
That's very. Do you know what I think it comes down to? It's not about the paperwork, although I struggled at school on everything. I've never sent an email. Somebody has to type that for me, all of them. So, you know, if you think you've got an email off me, that's not true. But you know, I can look at an email before it goes and say, no, that's not what I'm trying to say. So those words get altered. But I can read quite well, and I don't know why that is.
You can read and comprehend quickly.
Well, and also I think and actually it's leading on to what you said about how did all this happen in these years. And I think it's all to do with people. And I can get in a room, talk to people, and I know through talking to people the answers. That's really hard to sort of.
Are you saying that you kind of learn in a different way? So you're very good at reading. You're able to read and understand things, but also
only legal documents. I don't read books or anything.
But also you're a great networker, and you learn off other people.
Yeah, I can go to somebody and say, "Listen, tell me about this. Look, I've got this big pile of paper here. You read it. I've done it with you, John. You know, John, read this and tell me what it means.
Yeah,
you know." And then when you tell me what it means, if I don't agree with you, I'll say, "John, can you turn this way? Does it turn that way?
Yeah.
Listen, I didn't think of it like that." And out of that comes maybe not the answer, but, I'll come away from that meeting going, I can't take this on, or what's happening here is correct. So that's how it is. But most of the time I'm good at deciphering all that, but not through the paperwork.
Yeah. Okay. I understand that. Yeah. And
through logic, really.
When you think about what we've spoken about so far in terms of the opportunities that you've had and the decisions you've made, you're obviously a very good decision maker. What is it about you that makes you good at making decisions?
Well,
okay, so let's work on the example of the yard where you were offered effectively 80,000 to move out, but you were like, well, why do they want to pay that to me? What stopped you taking the 80,000, which was a lot of money at the time? And that's a big decision to make, isn't it, to turn that cash down?
Yeah, I suppose so. I don't know. I think in some things, you've either got it, then you know it, or there's something, or you haven't.
Yeah.
And I think it's just one of those situations. It's a bit like the jockey. There were loads of apprentice jockeys that were really good, and they had it, and they had that affinity with the horse and all that. As soon as I went near a horse, I couldn't stand it. But do you know what I mean? So it's it's like an athlete, isn't it, as well? They take to it and they're good at it. They've got a knack for it, and I've got a knack for shooting, but I can't play golf. And so I think it's just that.
Yeah.
And a bit of experience as well, I think.
Yeah, I think it's right. It's probably a mixture of the two.
Yeah.
So the demolition business was going well, and you obviously turned the yards, and you now had 2 yards. You then got into property development.
Yeah, I did got into property development. Built.
Is property development easy?
Yeah, I found it easy. Yeah, I found it quite easy. Yeah.
But I suppose it plays off a lot of the skills and experience you had. So you understood construction.
Understood construction. Yeah, understood finance. How to finance something. I think because while I'm sitting here with you, John, you're looking at talking to entrepreneurs. Didn't know I was an entrepreneur, but maybe I am. I don't know. And I think banks them days, when they knew you as a person, I don't think the word was entrepreneur then. He just was a person doing everything, employing loads of people, loads of cash coming in the bank. And when you went in the bank, anything you wanted, they give it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the manager knew. So the manager had a skill set like me. I didn't go to the manager, Charles, I want to do this. Now, he'd tell you if it was mad or not mad. And so you had a relationship in the bank. And if they said no, well, obviously you had to listen to that because he'd probably been the manager there for 20 years. So he'd seen it all come and go before.
Yeah.
So the whole thing really worked like that. So I knew what I was doing. The bank manager knew what he was doing, and so on and so on. And it just, all the guys who worked for me knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
So it goes along.
And one question that springs to the mind is why? Why did you do all this?
Don't know. I mean, that's a hard question because it's not money. because I mean, really, I'm nearly 70 now, and I've only just got interested in money. So, yeah,
Why were you so driven to do it?
don't know.
Or was it
It's
because
just a purpose.
you
Just
had
need a purpose.
you were very successful very young, and then had a series of success, and did one just push you on to the next one, and you just want to keep going?
I suppose so. Yeah, I think it must be inbuilt in you. You know,
That drive to.
yeah. I mean, listen, most people of my age back then, in 15, 16, we were just workers. That was it. And that's all you did. Went to work, earn some money.
Did you imagine that you'd end up being so successful?
No, don't think you
did. When you were that age, 15, 16, were there people around you who were successful?
Yeah, there was
like family, friends, and stuff.
Yeah, there was people around. Yeah, there was people, and I suppose you used to think, how's that work? You know,
yeah,
and you can't really work it all out. You know, but what works it out is time. You know, you can't just go, I'm going to do that in 2 years or whatever.
You need to be patient.
Yeah, yeah, and it just happens, you know. And hopefully, you get a few recessions on the way to help you.
And this is a difficult question, I think. And you might have an obvious answer, but maybe not. What in business? What has been your biggest mistake?
Ooh. I think employing people or having managing directors that get divorced always causes a problem in companies. Always. That has been the worst financial thing I'd suffer.
Really? Because they become distracted.
Well, they become distracted and they become financial unstable, and it just causes loads of problems. And if you've got shareholders that get divorced, they probably told the ex-wife thinks their shares are worth much more than they are, and they forget to tell the new one they've only got half of what she thinks. Yeah, so you got a big problem. And probably throw into the mix 2 or 3 kids at private school.
Yeah.
And you got a big problem.
Yeah, yeah.
And that always falls back in the company if they're a director or shareholder or, you know.
Construction's in a difficult situation at the moment. So we've got labour and material inflation, which has been ongoing for 18 months or whatever. The price of land is still quite high. And interest rates seem to be going up every 3 months. Have you seen this type of situation before? And how do you think things will play out next year?
I have seen it before, much worse than it is now. Now it's not really much at all, really. It's probably having quite a big effect because the interest rates were so low for 14 years. And I suppose people get into a sort of thing of keep buying something with free money. And now that's run out, so the impact is quite big, but it's not really. They shouldn't be where they are.
Yeah.
So if they get cut back, if they got a 5-bedroom house, they go back to a 2-bedroom house and pump the swimming pool out and rent it out as I don't know what, things be fine.
And what's the opportunity in a recession?
What's the opportunity? Well, I think people are more willing to overlook legislation or the red tape gets cut because you can't get anything done. So therefore, we're burning red tape every day. But there's so much of it, you'd have to burn it for 5 years before you actually got any freedom to do anything.
Yeah.
Because it's been loaded on us for 20 years. And also, it's very hard to stop all that because that red tape is there. So those kids who went through university, unless you're a doctor, a lawyer, a professor, because you're going to get a proper job. But for everyone else coming out of there, the only way they can get a job is red tape. That's all they can. We don't need them. You know, I mean, I've got people doing demolition, believe it or not, in their bedrooms at home. Yeah. Because they're working from home and they're in the project team somewhere and they have to have their say. And so they get on teams because, you know, and there's this meeting. I've got a meeting going on today. It'll be 2 hours of an interview to pull down the building. And we'll be talking to kids who's come through university that's never been on a site in their life and never will do. And they're sitting on the side of their bed with that computer, being on the Teams thing, asking questions.
Is that frustrating?
Yeah, because you're answering a question that don't exist. But you've got to answer it. Yeah. Otherwise, they go, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, it's not that. You don't know what you're talking about. I know what I'm talking about. Come down the site. Let's walk the site. Well, I can't come out today. It's snowing. You know what I mean? Or I know I've got this Teams thing here. That's what I'm using. We're on here doing this. Well, actually, don't add nothing.
I mean, so business has changed over the time that you've been in business. Do you have any regret in that sense, that the way that things are done now compared to how they used to be?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about regret, but I mean, I know this is why I see it, and I don't know. So when I was paying 70% tax, you had 3 million people on the dole, unemployment, yeah? So I was quite happy to pay that 75% tax because someone's got to pay them to sit at home, yeah? So I'm happy with that. But what happened was people like professors, doctors, all that, at 70%, pop stars, all that stuff, started leaving the country because they couldn't afford the tax or they didn't want to pay the tax. Well, couldn't really because some of them were on 90% tax. So somebody in government said, this is crazy. We're making them pay this tax. They're leaving the country. It was called the brain drain. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll lower the tax to 40%. That will stop them leaving the country. All the businessmen will be happy. But what we'll do, we'll make up a load of law that the 3 million people unemployed, they got to pay. They got to employ them. So now them 3 million people are in my office.
They're the tick and turners.
They're ticking and turning in my office. And my tax isn't 70%, it's 95% because I'm paying those people direct. And so is every other business. And until you get that out of the construction industry or any other business, your lump of plywood, never mind being 40, it'll be 500 quid a sheet unless you stop that.
I think there's truth in that.
So you need to take that out of there. That it's only just come in. It's only been in for 15 years, 20 years. Get that out of there. You're all right. Those people should be inventing things or setting up factories to make things, doing that kind of thing. Not, they're just a burden.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Well, look, thank you for being a guest on the podcast. I know that our listeners would have been really interested in what you said. If you've enjoyed listening to Colin today, then if you subscribe or email us at contactus@ridgemont.co, then we can add you to our newsletter and you can look out for the next podcast as it's released. Thank you, Colin, for joining us.
Thank you, John.
We will see you all on the next podcast in a couple of weeks.